Today's video is brought to you by Empire Abrasives, and I know a lot of you are like me. You're looking for ways to save money on your next project because now more than ever, our budgets have been cut down smaller and smaller and smaller by the rising cost of a lot of these parts and pieces that it takes to make stuff. Empire Abrasives has the absolute best prices that I can find without sacrificing quality on any of these abrasives that you see me use in these videos. So next time you need belts or grinding discs or cut-off wheels, anything like that, make sure you check out Empire. And if you want to save an additional 10% on your first order, use coupon code DIRTLifestyle at checkout. Today on Dirt Lifestyle, we're going to build some trailer fenders, and these need to be cost effective, they need to be super strong, they need to look good, and be as light as possible. That should be easy, right? In the last episode, we built a floor, we put walls on this thing, and we're even able to scab together a quick kitchen table. Today, we're going to target another very time-consuming aspect of this trailer, and that is going to be building a set of tube fenders. I ended the last video with this table, and I knew right away that I was going to have some issues with this table, but I needed time to figure out a solution. And that's why I put two tiny little tacks to hold this table on, because I knew that it was going to have to come back off. So before we can entertain any solutions for the table, we need to build the fenders, because I don't want to move the table too low and then whenever we build the fender, the table's in the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to build the fenders first, and if we're lucky, we can incorporate the fender as a natural stop for the table, but I won't know until we build some fenders. The first thing I need to do is pull the springs so we can bottom out our suspension and see what the limitations are of the tire. Basically, when I say limitations, I just mean how much up travel are we going to be able to have before the tire would contact the fender. Then it's time to start bending tube, and I just want to use very basic shapes in this. We're just going to use 90-degree angles and 45-degree angles because it's going to make the math the quickest, and I think, honestly, it's going to look the best. There's two pretty decent challenges you're going to face if you're building your first set of tube fenders. One is going to be making both sides identical, and the way that I do this is as I'm bending the first side, I'm making marks on the second piece of material so I know exactly where to bend it. And the second one is making sure that you don't have any sort of twist in between your bends, and this is a little bit more challenging than it sounds. And in a piece like this, we've got 4 bends, and that's 4 chances to be off by 1 or 2 degrees. And by the time you make that last bend, you realize that you're not very happy with the way this project turned out. To combat that twist with my machine, I measure the angle of the die, because the relationship between the angle of the die and the piece is the most important to ensure that we don't slowly put a twist in this piece between all the bends. If I measure 2.5 degrees on the die and the bends oppose each other at 90 degrees, then I need to subtract 2.5 from 90 to make my bend. This will ensure a perfect 90-degree relationship between my die and the piece, but I'll still find something flat like the floor or the table to make sure I don't have any twist in the piece before I try to install it on the vehicle. What do you think of that profile? I like it. I wanted to put the springs back on it right away because I wanted to look and see what the profile was when it's like close to ride height. I want ride height to be really close to where it is right now. I don't want it to go any lower or any higher. But I want, right now we could still go back. Like I could, these are just tacked on. I could just make a new profile for a fender if I came up with something that I thought would look better. But right now I like this profile. I think it's gonna work. This is a good place to start. So I want to shore this up from between this piece and the wall of the trailer. And the reason I want to do that is because the reality is when you're taking a sharp corner around a tree or something, we are going to constantly be dragging this, especially through the tight woods where I live. And so I want to have a really nice leading edge here to help lead a tree or a rock into the fender. And I want to make sure that this fender is super strong so we can stand on it if we need to. We can put it into a tree if we need to, and just make sure this is not a consumable part. The next challenge on the docket is going to be to skin these fenders, and I have some ideas on how to do this, but I don't really have the right tooling to do it the right way. So a lot of what you see in this channel is just experimentation, me just challenging my ideas, and this is certainly going to be an example of that. I want to build a little ledge, I guess, that's going to go on the inside of the fender that's going to match the exact profile of the outside of the fender. And this will make it a little bit easier for me to bend these fenders on car. I hope this works. We'll just kind of see what happens and how this develops. We are now at the most challenging part of this entire build, and that is going to be skinning these fenders. And the reason this is so challenging is, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I don't have the right tooling for this. My slip roll is not beefy enough to manipulate the steel in a way that won't like destroy or push the slip roll beyond its intended purpose. So I need to bend this on vehicle. Another option, of course, would be like take one of my welding cylinders and try to manipulate it around that. And that's not a terrible option for some instances, but it's kind of a bad one for this one because I want this reveal along the side of the trailer to be like perfect. So if you're trying to manipulate a piece off vehicle and it's a piece that's this long, if you are trying to bend it and you're at like 92 degrees instead of 90 degrees as you're trying to work that piece over the cylinder, you are going to have a messed up reveal where it butts up to the trailer. And that could be covered with weld, but I don't want to weld the outside. I want to weld the inside. So I want this to look as professional as possible. I want the best results possible. So what I've come up with is I am going to do this on the trailer. We've got that bridge on the inside that is exactly the same like radius and everything is the outside. So we've got two areas that we can push this down and slowly bend it and manipulate it. However, there's a couple more challenges associated with this method as well. One, we don't want to have a flat spot in the middle here or a noticeable flat spot. And we're going to be able to easily bend the outsides, but the inside is going to try to stay straight. So I'm going to use heat, and if we don't heat this evenly, we're going to end up with those flat spots anyway. But hopefully with a little bit of heat, I can get this steel to relax enough to take shape. I can cut these tack welds off, and then I can finish trimming this all off of the trailer and get perfect fitment before I weld it on. Plan B in this scenario would be I mess this piece up, I cut another piece out of that sheet that we have left, and then I basically tack weld our way all the way down, and then we have to trim the access off with an angle grinder and a flap disc. Again, the biggest challenge here for those of you that might be new, I've done a lot of tube fenders, but this is so wide, this makes this a lot more of a challenge to manipulate this piece. Because with the tube fenders that I did on my TJ, it's like 3.5 inches wide, so it's a lot harder to get a flat spot, whereas this is 13.5 inches wide, and we'll just see. I'm going to do my best. This is all experimentation, and I want it to not look like a guy in Tacoma made it. I want to make it look like a professional made it, so we'll just see what the end result is. The combination of clamps and heat was exactly what this fender needed. I think that it worked out perfect, and it was able to get the steel to relax just enough to take the shape that I want without having any weird flat spots in the middle or anything like that. Dude, you want to talk about a mistake? I just made a big one. This fender is pretty much good to go. I'm ready to weld it. I mean, it's got the reveal I want. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I don't have any flat spots here. This reveal around this leading edge looks great. And I blew a hole right through it. First tack. I was going to start tacking all this together so I could do a little bit of finish welds. I didn't pay attention to the settings on the machine. It was turned up all the way. And I just kind of stuck the gun up in there. I'm in a hurry. And I just went to do a nice meaty tack, and I've got a nice open hole. So, what would you do? I'm curious. I'm going to try to fix it. And if I can't get it clean enough, then I am going to have to rebuild this entire skin, which sucks because it's done. It just needs to be welded on by a competent welder, not me, I think. So we'll see. I'm going to try and fill this. I'm going to try to grind it as smooth as I can to get it to where I can get it close to being able to hide it. And I mean, we're going to be coating this, this portion is going to be coated in like bed liner, and it's got a really nice rough texture, which should hopefully help hide that. Let's see what I can do. To try and save this fender, I'm going to weld a really small chunk of scrap on the bottom side, and then I'm going to fill the top and then just slowly try to grind it down in a way that looks presentable. I got it close enough to where I know I can hide it with a couple of extra coats of primer maybe right there, a little bit of sanding, and then a nice fat coat of bed liner. Sometimes small mistakes have big consequences, but luckily I was able to dodge the bullet on this one. Ladies and gentlemen, we have fenders. I like that. I think that looks good. It's a big ass fender. There's no doubt about it. But they're solid. They're really stout. When you handle them, you can feel that they're very much permanently mounted to this vehicle, and that is what we wanted. We wanted this to be something that, oh, tripping over spare material there. That is what we wanted. We don't want something that's removable because we know how much abuse this is going to take. And when you can stick it all to the chassis and weld it nice and solid and have as many contact points to the chassis as this does, you know that we're going to have a nice, strong, solid result. So, this little guy right here, I want to fill that with dimple dies. There's going to be a few sections on this chassis. So, as far as styling goes, we're going to have some big flat sections, and those I would like to wrap those. Anything that is diamond plate and like tube is going to end up getting like a bed liner, but I'm also going to have some dimple die sections because I think stylistically it's going to look really good to have that mixture of those three styles and those three elements. However, I do not have time to get to the dimple dies today because I got to take my kiddo and go camping. I wish that Nate got a little bit farther in this video too. I'm sorry. Some projects just take longer than others, and believe it or not, you just watched a lot of hours worth of work to build these fenders. Certain projects just take a ton of time, and this is one of those where in order to make it mirrored on both sides, it takes a lot of extra time in order to bend everything right. And then of course, when you're fixing little boo-boos like I made there by having my machine a little too hot, that takes time. I'll put a little bit of B-roll of how that turned out, by the way, and you can tell me what you think. So I could make this video longer, and I could work through the weekend like I usually do, but this weekend is a special one. My son and I have plans to go snow camping together, and he's only 4 once. And I think that canceling on my son to make this video longer is an inappropriate use of time. We all only have so much time available to us, and for me, work wins a lot, but in this case, family is absolutely going to take precedence. I know that he's going to have a blast, and he's only 4 once, so I absolutely have to take him up there. So that being said, in 2 hours, I'm leaving. I've got to get my Rover in here and get packed and get this place cleaned up a little bit and get this video uploaded so you guys can watch it on Sunday while I'm gone. If you want to help support the channel, you can go to thedirtlifestyle.com. We have t-shirts, hats, neck gaiters, all that stuff. We have a link to our Patreon account. And in fact, some of the people who are coming camping with me this weekend are people that are from Patreon. There are big Patreon get-together things that we do like every month. And then sometimes in between, I'll just put a message out like, hey, if you can come camping in 2 or 3 days and you're in the Washington area, this is where we're meeting. And so I've got a couple folks in Patreon that like to come hang out, and they're going to come with us too. So if that's something that interests you, its minimum is $1. So it's a buck. If you've gotten $1 worth of information from any of these videos or $1 worth of entertainment, consider supporting us on Patreon, and then you can come hang out with us sometimes whenever we go off-road. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Dirt Lifestyle Nate. We'll see you next time.